Donald Trump's former campaign chair was wiretapped by the U.S. government both before and after the election. CNN is reporting that. And that's just 6 months after the president was mocked for claiming his residence was tapped.
Welcome to Obama Tapped My Phone Island. Population, President Trump.
CNN has learned that investigators wiretapped former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort under secret court order, both before and after the 2016 election.
To recap, in March, the president tweeted that he had learned Obama wiretapped him at Trump Tower. CNN adds this was done because his campaign was yet again suspected of, quote, having ties with Russia. Former campaign chair Paul Manafort is now demanding the Justice Department immediately probe the Obama administration's actions. RT's Caleb Morpin reports.
Trump's former campaign manager may have been wiretapped by the FBI. CNN, citing its sources, says that Paul Manafort was wiretapped before and after the U.S. election under a warrant issued by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This sounds serious, but remember how no one took Trump seriously after he claimed he was tapped?
Where is the proof?
I mean, it was an idiotic move. Does anyone here disagree he wasn't completely idiotic?
Where did Trump get these ideas? Where is he getting his information?
We have a, quote, ridiculous, unquote, president.
Well, now it turns out that perhaps Donald Trump wasn't losing his mind after all, especially when you take into account that Paul Manafort has a residence at Trump Tower. Now, the CNN report about the FBI spying on Manafort could, of course, be wrong. But if it isn't, it suggests that lawmakers from both parties and leaders of the intelligence community misled the public.
I have not seen any evidence that this has occurred. The Intelligence Committee has not seen evidence that this has occurred.
What the president charged President Obama with wiretapping him is not true.
There was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign.
Now, you can't talk about wiretapping or Trump scandals without throwing Russia in there somewhere. The CNN report suggests that data collected from spying on Paul Manafort shows that he encouraged Russia to help out with Trump's campaign. The spokeswoman for Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says she can't wait to hear what comes next.
Do you see Russia's role here? Right, to legitimize illegal actions. Without this external factor, it would be a new Watergate. But with this foreign meddling, the story was sent along the alley of national security. The finale will be spectacular. Can't wait to see it.
Now, there's a lot of contradicting claims from a lot of high-ranking people. At this point, there's a lot of key players involved. Obama, Trump, Manafort, the Democrats, the Republicans, and the Russians. Now, Paul Manafort says he wants an investigation to help clear things up, but it could easily have the opposite effect. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
Hollywood looks to crack down on Russia. Those details after this break.
In case you're new to the game, this is how it works now. The economy is built around corporations. Corporations run Washington. Washington controls the media. The media controls the voters. Voters elected a businessman to run this country. Business equals power.
Boom bust. It's not business as usual. It's business like it's never been done before.
What politicians do is something we don't do. They put themselves on the line, and they get accepted or rejected. So when you want to be president, why would you want to be? Why would someone want to be president? What's it like to be president? What's it like when the phone rings at 3 in the morning? Can't be a good call. I'm interested always in the whys and the hows. And Q Larry. Question more.
Welcome back to the program. Hollywood star Morgan Freeman has targeted Russia in an unusual video of its supposed meddling in the U.S. presidential election.
We have been attacked. We are at war.
Imagine this movie script. A former KGB spy, angry at the collapse of his motherland, plots a course for revenge. Then he sets his sights on his sworn enemy, the United States. Vladimir Putin is that spy, and this is no movie script.
The clip promotes the Committee to Investigate Russia, a new group created by artists, but question marks are being raised over who's behind the project. RT's Daniel Hawkins takes a closer look.
Hollywood legend Morgan Freeman is no stranger to dramatic movie scripts, like this one.
Welcome to the CIA, sport.
At a time of increasing tension and new enemies.
You don't fight Russia and America. You get Russia and America to fight each other and destroy each other.
Only two men suspect the truth.
Playing a CIA director at the center of a tense standoff between the USA and a hardline Russian president. Sound familiar? It seems the boundaries between Hollywood fantasy and real-life politics are increasingly blurring. Indeed, Freeman himself supported Hillary Clinton's presidential bid.
Her life's work has been about breaking barriers, and so would her presidency.
Now, he's waded into the Russia election hacking scandal. His latest video is part of a new initiative called the Committee to Investigate Russia. It's a lineup of pretty big names from the film and media industry, such as Hollywood director Rob Reiner, teaming up with the government elites, as if the multiple investigative committees already looking into alleged Russian meddling weren't enough. Here's a team of true patriots.
The media does talk about it a lot, and for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be penetrating into what I refer to as the real Americans. I mean, patriotic Americans that wave the flag.
Now, speaking of patriots, Rob Reiner has made it pretty clear what he himself thinks of Donald Trump supporters.
How do you explain the millions and millions of people who actually like what they hear from Donald Trump and aren't taking messages and orders from us in the media? How do you explain that?
Well, there are a lot of people who are racist. Oh, my God.
Okay, so Rob's position is clear. Here's another member of the committee, a familiar face to those following the Russia-US election hacking saga. James Clapper, former director of national intelligence, investigated Moscow's meddling but didn't find enough evidence to prove collusion between the Trump campaign and Russian foreign nationals. But he's still convinced the Russians did it. After all, it's in their blood.
The Russians, who are typically almost genetically driven to co-opt, penetrate, gain favor, whatever.
So we await their latest findings. Perhaps one day they will be the subject of their very own Hollywood blockbuster.
The Kremlin spokesperson downplayed the video, noting actors can be misled over what's actually going on. Media analyst Lionel added some context to the story.
Vladimir Putin apparently seeking revenge for the collapse of his country against what? The United States that caused this? But then we have a group of people, a couple of neocons, an intelligence head who said that the NSA never spied on his people, said that there was no wiretapping of Trump or anybody in his group. You had the individual, Mr. Froome, who came up with that classic axis of evil. And then you have the most preposterous, cobbled together, glued theory of how, by virtue of this revenge, Russia, yet again, somehow caused this election to be hacked, lost, or whatever, absolving Hillary Clinton of just losing. It wasn't her fault. And the 63 or so million Americans who voted for Trump, they were part of a brainwashing, some weird kind of telepathy that from the Kremlin, where people all of a sudden found themselves like robots voting for Donald Trump for reasons they don't know why. Hollywood imbues certain people with this sense of expertise in everything. They are an actor. They play roles. They inhabit positions that they are not. They're almost chameleon. And all of a sudden, when given the opportunity to do so, they become experts.
But Hollywood is far from the only top group clamping down on Moscow, as US lawmakers issued a bill that could block Russian broadcasters from being distributed in the US. It could allow US distributors to break their contracts, leaving Russian channels without any legal recourse. Samira Khan takes up the story.
This amendment was proposed by Senator John McCain and could potentially create a major barrier for Russian channels broadcasting in the U.S. It would not require distributors to carry content from television networks owned or controlled by the Russian government. The proposal is bundled into a defense spending bill. If this becomes law, it could jeopardize current contracts between Russian channels and U.S. distributors. It could potentially impact RT, which broadcasts in the U.S. Back in January, RT was singled out in an intelligence report which accused the network of trying to sway the U.S. presidential election in Donald Trump's favor. The report, however, contained no evidence whatsoever, only citing what's viewed as a negative reporting on Hillary Clinton. RT is also a regular topic at Senate hearings.
Russia Today.
Propaganda, call them whatever.
RT.
A propaganda organ.
Russian propaganda on steroids. Organ of the Russian government.
I don't know whether average citizens find it more persuasive, but, you know,
I'm afraid they do. In the area of public diplomacy, Russia eats our lunch.
It's also worth noting that there are several foreign governments who fund channels in the U.S., including France 24, which is fully owned by the French government, Al Jazeera, owned by Qatar, also a BBC, which is funded by fees set by the British government. But Russia is the only one targeted. So as always, Russia seems to be getting special attention.
As Samira pointed out, the amendment is part of the National Defense Authorization Act, but the bombshell plan is buried deep inside the multi-page document. The part about Russia is summarized in just a few lines between details on funding of the U.S. military sector. Experts told us all this is no coincidence.
The defense bill often has things stuck in it that have nothing to do with defense. It's like that's how Congress gets things done that they wouldn't be able to just do as a freestanding bill because it would be too ridiculous or it would have too much opposition. So they stick it in the defense bill, figuring that the whole damn thing will get passed. Members of Congress don't read the bills, and so it really could slip past most of the members completely. Presumably they have staff people that read it better, but they don't read it.
There's an obsession on Capitol Hill and in the mainstream media with RT, because RT is effective and RT is watched, but also, and this is very important, because RT carries perspectives that are not available on the mainstream media. The fact of the matter is John McCain and Lindsey Graham, the people behind this amendment, the Atlantic Council and the others that are trying to silence RT, they are the totalitarians. They are the enemies of free speech. They are the enemies of the First Amendment. They don't want anyone coming on television saying that America's foreign policy is a disaster. It is broken. It is making us more vulnerable to attack, and it's costing a fortune. They cannot stand competition in the area of ideas. So Russia is not only the flavor of the month, it's the flavor of the year. You know, there's an obsession. There's the Investigate Russia Committee, where a bunch of Hollywood liberals got together with a bunch of neocons and are finding reds under our beds. There's a hysteria going on in America. I still would like to believe that the average American thinks it's absolutely nuts. I hope it stays that way. Hopefully this will blow over at some point and not blow up.